I wonder if you're worried about any kind of existential crisis, at least in the cannabis vaping space.
No, I think, as you guys were just talking about, it's becoming clear that black market is the real issue here. The legal cannabis market in states like California, where I am, or Colorado, Massachusetts, have very strict standards for monitoring the space, both on testing as well as overall compliance, with something we called seed to sale tracking, ensuring that we know where all our products are sort of in real time within the legal infrastructure. So while it's certainly an issue and we're all concerned about it, I think within the legal infrastructure, we're actually in quite good shape. I think a lot of the focus needs to be on cracking down on the black market.
We all know what's happened to prices of stocks like Tilray and Kronos, but have valuations done the same thing in your space regarding fears of what policy may do?
I think the public markets always do, lead to some price softening in what happens in our world in private markets. But clearly we're dealing with, two very different issues. If you look at, the public markets as far as cannabis is concerned, it's mainly comprised of, Canadian licensed producers and multi-state operators. And that's just not the entire market as a whole, right? The cannabis industry is very vast. And while those get a lot of attention, those are public names, they certainly don't give you a full reflection of the entire cannabis industry. So there's certainly a pullback in valuation, and that's something that we all anticipated and actually really welcome. But certainly is not as dramatic as what you're seeing in the public space.
Karan, for just a point of clarification, Meg Terrell laid out sort of two different issues that are going on in general in this space, and of course a lot of concern for public health about the illnesses and deaths associated with vaping. And while there's still a lot of unanswered questions, perhaps some of the commonality has to do with this vitamin E acetate. As far as you're aware, when it comes to the legal products, is that an ingredient in any of those, or is this only a black market issue?
Yeah, I'm not aware completely of where that lies within the legal infrastructure, but certainly highlighting it and knowing that it's an issue is something that is something that will be addressed immediately within sort of everyone within the cannabis infrastructure. I can't speak to exactly what's in every product, but I know many cannabis products do not use vitamin E acetate whatsoever.
What about states like Massachusetts, which I think for a while at least had a ban on all cannabis vaping? Their Cannabis Control Commission may have overturned that, but is that a concern for you as this issue continues to resonate?
Yeah, I think these are knee-jerk reactions, by regulators. And again, what happens when you stop the legal sales of vaping? You draw people further into the black market, where there's no regulation, there's no testing standards, and you can have, all sorts of cutting agents within your product. So, yeah, I think, regulators need to be more mindful of what the reactions are to what they think are helping from a health and safety perspective, are actually drawing consumers, towards potentially much more harmful products.
Is there any situation you can imagine yourself in where you were in a state where it's legal for recreational use, you had a choice between flower and a vape pen? I mean, would you go to the vape pen with no misgivings?
Yeah, I think, we have really high standards in the legal cannabis industry. Products before they hit the shelves are tested multiple times as they sort of move from flower to distillate and into these sort of final products. So, yeah, I would have no misgivings between the two products for sure.
Karan, very quickly, before we go, we heard Tilray report their earnings after the bell. Profitability is still an issue, and it does look like the prices are falling. We know this is a growing industry, but what about it ultimately being a profitable industry for many players?
Yeah, look, this is not just the cannabis issue, as you guys are all aware of. There is now becoming a much more of a focus on profitability for companies, across the space, not just in the cannabis industry. So it's definitely something that we think is important, and that renewed focus will, I think, ultimately lead to a much more healthy cannabis industry for all investors. So we certainly welcome that renewed focus.